Welcome back, Econ Studs. Whole new year 2015. We're looking at finance. Let's start with banking. Got a little story for you. The main role of financial institutions is matching borrowers and lenders. Let's say that Sean, right here, wants to start a business selling co-poly strings for tennis rackets along with Rafael Nadal's male capri pants. Unfortunately, Sean has no money to start up his business. In other words, he needs a loan. Then we have Chase right over here, who, being the frugal individual he is, has $10,000 in cash that he doesn't want to spend. Sean would love to use that $10,000 to start his business, but unfortunately, Chase doesn't know Sean. In steps financial institutions like banks. Chase deposits his $10,000 at U.S. Bank and makes 3% interest on keeping his money there. What this means is that U.S. Bank will pay Chase $300 a year to keep his money with them. Now, U.S. Bank is not a charity that simply pays people money to keep their money with them, so they turn around and lend out Chase's money to Sean with an interest rate of 4%. So now Sean has the $10,000 he needs, and he's excited to start his little tennis shack, but he must pay back U.S. Bank the original $10,000 plus $400 in interest. Luckily for Sean, the loan is not due all at once, so he can grow his business and easily pay back the loan. Sean is happy he gets to start his business. Chase is happy he makes $300 for just keeping his money in the bank, and U.S. Bank is happy because they made $100 by connecting Sean and Chase. And guess what? Everyone's happy, and there you have the financial system in a simplified nutshell. Now, if you read Chapter 26, which I encourage you to do, you're going to learn about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, the difference between financial markets, financial intermediaries. Please read that, understand that. That's going to show up on the assessment on Friday. But I want to then turn what the other parts of the chapter looks at. First off is the idea of savings and investments. Let's turn the page here. Start out this idea of private savings. This is savings from individuals. And it's a simple little equation here. It's all the income you earn minus all the consumption you have in your life, also minus the taxes you pay. So from what you consume and what's your tax, what's left over of your income, that is your private savings. We also have public savings, and this is the savings that comes from the government. How does the government save money? Simple. They collect taxes, they also spend money. Anytime they have more in taxes than they spent, you have an additional of public savings. Now, here's where economics gets a little funky in their language, but it's really important to understand this. We have this difference between savings and investment, all right? Savings, as noted by private savings, public savings, is any money not being consumed or taxed. The money you put in the bank, that's savings. But here's the funny part here. We often think of stocks and bonds as investments, not in the language of economics. In macro, if you buy stock, that's savings. If you buy a bond, that's savings. Why? Because it's not consumption, it's not taxes, it came from your income, and therefore it is savings. And with savings, we'll get into this, other companies can use that money, or people can use that money to help them grow their business or their personal projects. That's savings. On the flip side, we have investments. Investment is often I refer to as big letter I in economics. It's really, really important because with investment, we can grow productivity, which we know is important, and make our economy stronger. And investment is not buying stocks and bonds. It's spending money to improve productivity. Where do we see this? A company builds a new factory. They're going to be more productive. That's investment. I have more machines which produce with. Again, I'll be more productive. That's investment. Again, with tools. Same with education. Education's investment also. I'm spending money to make myself more productive in the future. There's one other way that we have productivity, or investment, excuse me, and that's buying a house. It's grouped a little funkily here. It's not consumption. It is considered for accounting purposes. Buying a house is investment. And here's the great thing. In a closed economy domestically, all of the savings that you have is the pool in which you can invest. And so savings equals investment. You cannot have investment if you don't have a place to get money in which to become more productive. So we have a little graph that shows how this is done. I want you to draw this with me. We have the loanable funds market. On the vertical axis, we have real interest rate. On the horizontal axis, we have the quantity of loanable funds. And we've seen this before, but we have a demand curve. We have a supply curve. The demand curve equals investment. And guess what? As the interest rate gets lower, as money becomes cheaper, we have more and more demand that exists out there. There's more and more people who want to take money and try to become more productive with it. The supply curve equals savings. The higher interest rate being offered on the money that you save, the more people are willing to save money. And this savings is both public plus private, which is known as national savings. We add the two together. So that's savings. And when we're in equilibrium, we've established the real interest rate that exists for the economy and the quantity of loanable funds that exists. Now let's say that we want to boost our economy and we want to find ways that's going to encourage people to save more money, and with this saving more money, it's going to lead to more investment. And so let's say that we give people a tax incentive that encourages them to save money instead of consuming it. As a result of this, I'm going to shift my supply curve to the right because now I have more savings. And with more savings, this is going to cause the interest rate to fall. If financial institutions have more money now at their disposal to lend out, they're going to lower interest rates to encourage more borrowing. And that, in turn, is going to encourage more investment, and our economy will grow, and we're happy. But this is the positive scenario of loanable funds. Is there the negative as well? Of course there is. So I have another graph right here of loanable funds. And now let's pick on the government. I said that when the government has more in taxes than it spends, then it is adding to public savings. But what happens when the government spends more than it is bringing in taxes? Well, with this, it's going to have less savings. If we have less savings because we are running deficits, we're shifting that supply curve to the left. With this now, we have less money to lend out. With less money to lend out, interest rates will rise. With interest rates rising, we have a decrease in the quantity of loanable funds that will be lent out, which means less investment. With less investment, we have less productivity. With less productivity, we have a slower growing economy in the future. And so we encourage governments not to take on lots and lots of deficits. And what's a deficit? Well, that is any year the government spends more than it collects. And I want to point out to you as our last thing the difference between a deficit and a debt. The deficit is any one year, any one fiscal year, the government spends more than it collects in taxes. Whereas the debt is you add up all the deficits during the history of the country. Currently, the U.S. government has a debt of over $17 trillion. That's a lot of years of running deficits. Added up together makes a massively large debt. Will this cause any problems with investment having higher interest rates? Time will tell. Please read chapter 26. It's interesting. You'll learn lots, and we'll take an assessment on Friday. When in doubt, graph it out.